A legislative history is the information embodied in any legislative documents that provides the meaning and interpretation of a statute. It can be a listing of those documents, something we call a bibliography, or it can be the actual documents themselves. In order to help you visualize where these documents get produced, I'm going to be referring to this poster produced by the U.S. Government Printing Office, now called the U.S. Government Publishing Office, on how a bill becomes law. I realize it's way too small for you to actually be able to read the entries, but I will attempt to show you where in the process the different types of documents can be produced. The first document of a legislative history is a bill. Most bills go nowhere and are filed just so the congressman can say, "I introduced legislation in Washington that blah, blah, blah," in their campaign literature. But for those bills that become enacted, the bill contains the language that will be the law, and it can change as it goes through the legislative process. Bills can be introduced in one chamber at a time, or both at the same time, and one passed in lieu of the other. Bills with the different numbers on the same subject are related bills, and when one bill is passed in lieu of another, they're called companion bills. In the lawmaking process, one bill goes through many versions. The bill is introduced, provides evidence, the original language, and looking at different versions of the bill, you might be able to find evidence of specific inclusion or exclusion of some of the provisions. Some bills have only formatting changes through the various versions, but others can have major revisions made at any time during the process. Congress will print another version if there are substantial changes. And the different versions of the bill, by the way, all have the same bill number. Typically, a bill will be printed as introduced, as reported out of committee, as engrossed, which means as enacted by one chamber, as referred to the other chamber, and as enrolled, which is passed by both chambers. And there can be additional versions if more changes are made throughout the process. This is an example of a bill. Bills are identified by Congress, chamber, and then number. Since each chamber starts numbering its bills with 1 when a new Congress begins, be sure to include the Congress number and the chamber, either HR for House of Representatives or S for Senate, whenever you write down a bill number. Hearings are when Congress hears testimony from each other and from people interested in the subject on proposed or potential legislation. Hearings only prove Congress was aware of something, not necessarily the intent of Congress. Congress will often hold hearings on a subject it is considering writing laws on to find out more information before anything is drafted. Hearings from past Congresses are often considered part of the legislative history of a law passed in a later Congress because of these preliminary hearings. Checking our chronology, hearings can happen before is bill introduced, or a committee can decide to hold a hearing on one bill or on many related bills at once. This is an example of a hearing on a number of bills in the 110th Congress on national parks legislation. And while there is a very tiny hearing number on the cover of this hearing, hearings tend to be referred to by their titles, the committees that hold them, and their dates. And here's a page in that hearing where the Undersecretary of Natural Resources and Environment is giving a prepared statement. Witnesses also answer questions. In legislative history, the term hearings refers to the transcripts of what is said at those hearings, and these transcripts can sometimes take a year or more to be printed up. Reports are usually the most useful part of a legislative history. This is because this is where a congressional committee recommends passage of a bill, often stating the reasons why this bill should become law. Reports can come from one committee, can come from committees from either chamber, as well as from a conference committee with members from both chambers. If there were substantial differences in the versions of the bill that passed, they'll be sent to a conference committee, which will issue a conference report, which is often the most useful part of a legislative history. Reports are referred to by chamber and report number, and the report number includes the Congress number in it. So the report seen here would be cited as HR Rep 112-322. Committee prints are just documents that Congress is asked to have printed up for their convenience. They can be as simple as a markup version of a bill that shows the effect the legislation would have if enacted by showing strikes through of the language to be deleted and underlines for the language to be added. And sometimes Congress will request the printing of a compiled legislative history. Here's an example of a committee print that is just a copy of the Endangered Species Act as amended through the end of 2004. Activities on the floor of Congress are recorded in the congressional record. It's the complete record of what happens on the floor of Congress every day, including floor amendments and votes, of course, as edited by members to make themselves look better. It only includes those things that happen on the floor, so it does not include committee meetings or hearings, but when a report is submitted to Congress, that fact is noted in the congressional record. The congressional record has two separate editions: the daily edition, which has separate page numbers from the House and Senate that begin with the letters H or S, so you know which chamber it came from, and a permanent edition, which comes out many years later and has totally different pagination. If the congressional record page number does not begin with a letter, it's from the bound permanent edition. The last piece of a legislative history doesn't come from Congress at all. The President issues a message called a signing statement some of the time as the last step in the legislative process. After a bill is passed by both chambers in the identical form, it's presented to the President for either a signature or a veto. Presidential signing messages are printed a number of places, but the official source for presidential messages prior to 2009 is the weekly compilation of presidential documents. And this is an example of President Clinton's signing statement on signing the Land Disposal Program Flexibility Act of 1996 in the weekly compilation of presidential documents for March 29, 1996. Beginning in 2009, the weekly compilation was replaced by the daily compilation of presidential documents, and these are the President's remarks on signing the Water Resources Reform and Development Act of 2014.